Welcome to Radical Release, a healing series within There's No Way I Signed Up for This. This series was born in the in-between, the moments no one claps for, the silent breakdowns, the whispered prayers, the kind of healing that happens when no one's watching. This isn't about getting it all right. It's about learning to return to yourself with gentleness, with faith, and with enough grace to know that not having all the answers still means you're enough. Here, we talk about love after loss, peace after chaos, and how to hear God again, even when it's been quiet for a very long time. So take a breath. This is where we begin the radical release. There is a version of you that made impossible choices. A version that stayed quiet to stay safe. A version that pushed through exhaustion, fear, and heartbreak just to see another day. You did what you had to do to survive. You carried the weight. You silenced the screams. You held together pieces that no one else even noticed were breaking, or wouldn't even begin to understand if you tried to tell them. And because of all of that, all of those actions, all of those decisions, you are still here. But survival was not the end of your story. It's a chapter, a necessary one, but a temporary one. And now the Spirit of God is whispering, it's time to rest. Matthew 11:28 says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Today on Radical Release, we're going to talk to the survivor. We're going to ask them to lay down the burdens. We are going to give ourselves permissions to stop fighting ghosts and memories as we step into this sacred invitation to rest and to heal. What you did, you had to do. And when life becomes a battlefield, your body, your mind, and your spirit adapt. There's a phrase that we hear, or I heard a lot when I was in the military, right? You adapt and overcome. You didn't fail. You fought. You didn't break. You bent. And you didn't give up. You adjusted to survive. So if you stayed silent when you wanted to scream, you were surviving. If you loved someone who couldn't love you back, you were surviving. And if you minimized your pain just to keep moving, you were surviving. Survival is wisdom, not weakness. Survival is strength, not shame. You did what you had to do, and you don't owe anyone an apology for the choices you made when you were carrying battles you couldn't even name. But here's the challenge around all of that. Why, most of us are nodding our heads and saying, well, yeah, I know I don't have to apologize to anyone. I know I don't owe anyone an explanation on the choices I've made to get where I'm at. But the honest fact is, we owe it to ourselves. How often do we go back and think, maybe I should have done it this way? Or did I do the right decision or make the right decision? I shouldn't have stayed so long. Why didn't I reach out when I was supposed to? Why did I think it was going to get better, even though it never did? All of the whys, all of the self-doubt, all of the, if I didn't do this, I wouldn't be here. That's true. You survived, whatever that was. And there's been so many examples when people are going through some form of trauma in their life where they get stuck in the whys. Or society and people you're around keep you there. You'll hear questions like, well, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you leave sooner? Why didn't you say this when this happened? Why didn't you? And even though we say, we know we don't owe anyone an apology, we know we don't have to explain ourselves to anyone, those experiences get stuffed away in our subconscious, where they just come up at the most random times. My personal favorite is when I'm trying to go to sleep and you start reliving all of these experiences where, well, maybe if I should have done this. Or look at all the time I wasted dealing with that. Or maybe if I just didn't give this person a chance, I wouldn't have experienced all the things. And that is who we're talking to today. That is what this episode is for. It's to quiet those voices. It's to give yourself grace and mercy. It's to allow yourself to forgive the parts and pieces of you that were in survival mode. Now, it's time to rest. The season that required your survival in those experiences is over. The danger has passed. As you're listening to my voice right now, you are safe. Yes, there might be some headaches still lingering on. Yes, like I know for me, I'm dreading tomorrow going to work, but at least I have work, right? So it's really a way of reframing that still allows you the ability to rest and have some peace. Those old battles are behind you. But like I just mentioned, the nervous system, the heart, and the mind, sometimes it still feels that we're in the fight, we're in the battle. And this can come up when it's something not related to the event, but it's very similar, or it fires different parts in the brain that wired together around that trauma. So even though you might know that battle is over, that danger has passed, sometimes certain experiences or memories will fire things up in your nervous system where you're right back in those spaces. And I call those trauma responses, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be attached to the exact event, but it makes you feel similar, feel voiceless, feel hopeless, feel scared. And that's why resetting the nervous system, forgiving yourself and allowing yourself rest is so important. So if your body does start to remember, you are able to reframe, refocus, and realign. Because the truth of the matter is you survived the storm. But in that survival, you're still holding on to wounds. You're still holding on to behaviors. You're still holding on to mindsets that are bracing for waves that are no longer coming. And this is the part God wants to walk with you through now. Not the survival, but the restoration. And what does that look like? Not the need for more endurance, but for ease. And not for that constant state of alert, but for peace. I make jokes all the time where I'm very intentional now in my life to live the soft life. What does that mean, the soft life? I want to be able to sleep at night. But to do that, I need to adjust my sleep hygiene. How am I sleeping? What am I doing to prevent the sleep, right? Because we do have some ownership in these spaces. But that's a part of my soft life plan, adjusting my sleep schedule so I can get quality sleep. Not putting myself in situations or places where I know I'm going to be triggered. So to know that, I have to know what my triggers are. What are things I am actively sensitive to that will put me in that state of alertness? And make changes and modifications around that where I can, right? Do things that I like and not care what other people think, right? I'm a very texture person. I like textures. I don't know if it's a Pisces thing or what, but I like soft things. So going to get a nice soft blanket, right? Sipping tea slowly, even though it's getting cold. Watching, I'm a big Disney princess person, which is crazy if you know me personally. Like, that's completely opposite. But it brings me ease, it brings me peace. So when I'm talking about the soft life, and I'll probably get a form for you all so you can already, create your soft life plan. What does that look like? What does soft look like? Soft not being weakness. Soft being acceptance, grace, and peace. We have to get to a point where rest is not laziness. It's a reset. It's a nervous reset, a spiritual reset, an emotional reset. It's really a requirement for us to be able to live our soft life, right? To be able to be in those spaces, but just to survive beyond what tried to break us. And not just survive beyond it, to thrive. Because think of what it looks like to live in survival every day of your life. Let's take a moment. Let's sit with that for a second. What would you think it would be for you? So not comparing yourself to other people, because that's another area we really have to work on when we're looking at a radical release. But just you. What does it look like to be in survival every day? What do you think your body, how that reacts, how you physically react, how you mentally react, spiritually? What does that look like? Now, in contrast, what does it look like, or what would it be to live in a soft space where there's peace, acceptance, and forgiveness? When I'm talking about the soft life, you probably start to feel your shoulders relax. When you start to think about what that might look like, you might start to get a smile across your face, right? The jawbone start to soften. You start to look up and visualize what that looks like. I'm a huge pink person, but here's the funny thing. I knew I was entering into that different phase for me when the things that I resonated with or identified with changed. When I was in survival mode, my favorite colors were really dark and black. I had a funny saying that my kids hated. When somebody would ask me what was my favorite color, I would be, it's black like my soul. Which people who know me know my soul is not black. But now I'm in a space that resonates with me more with who I am. So mauves, pinks, blushes. I like to say dusty rose versus pink, but gotta keep my gangsta somewhere. Just joking. But soft things, like actually tangibly soft things. But for you, it might look different. But I want you to visualize and identify what that looks like. And definitely look in our resource section on our website, The Graceful Reset. I have they're all free resources, and I'll have a soft life planning document where you can kind of start picking those out. Because that's a piece of it. Sometimes we get stuck in survival or get stuck in that trauma response space because we have not allowed ourselves to even think about what the other side feels like or what it looks like. So, how do we release and rest? This is something that's key. We first honor who we were to survive. Who was that person? And not be ashamed of that person or question that person. Why didn't you? You should have done this. You should have known better. We put those phrases aside and say, You did what you had to do to survive. You're here right now listening to my voice. So every choice you made to get to this point today was the right choice for you because you're still here. And you want to thank that version of who you were and everything that person carried. Every scar, every tear, every smile that hid the frown. Thank that person, that version of you, who you were then, because they allowed you to get to where you are now. You want to say blessings over that version of you, that the instincts that were used, and understand that that person was who you needed to be to survive. And once you honor and bless and thank, you want to release. What would it look like for that version of you to put the shield down, to unclench the fist, to sit down and take your armor off under a tree with a beautiful breeze and just breathe? Not looking over your shoulder, not having to make up an excuse of why this looks like this or this didn't happen, not going someplace off by yourself to cry, but just sitting down with peace and to breathe. What does that look like? And allow that version of you to be who you are now. You don't have to explain your survival anymore. You don't have to explain why I said that, why I did that, why I stayed there, why I gave that individual a chance, why I moved here, why I took that job. You don't have to explain your decisions anymore. Honor it and then release. Release and choose peace. Now, with all that being said, this is not to say you're not going to bump into life's challenges and difficulties. In our current climate in this planet, there's a lot of challenge and difficulties going on. But when you allow yourself to rest, when you allow yourself to mentally reset, you're able to face challenges. You're able to face new bumps in the road with a different mindset, where instead of going from 0 to 100 in less than 60 seconds, you're able to pause. Practice the pause is something I say all the time. Practicing the pause allows us to make decisions that are based on who we are today, not who we used to be. So if you were really reactive back in the day, or you could have very well been fighting for your life, that is not who you are today. So the response to a difficulty or a challenge doesn't have to be from 0 to 100. It could be a pause where the pause for you might feel very long, but for somebody else, it could be a minute, 2 minutes, where all you say is, I need to process this. I need a moment. I'll get back to you. Or choosing not to participate in things that will place you in spaces that will trigger or flame, right? That previous part of you where you feel you do have to wake up, put that armor back on, and go into battle. Everything is not a fight. Everything is not a battle. So when you allow yourself to mentally reset, when you allow yourself to have a nervous system restoration, you'll start to see that everything is not a battle, and you'll be able to act accordingly. So it'll allow you, in the spaces where you can change things, in the places where you can control things, you will choose what I said. What's the soft experience for you? Everything does not need to be hard. Yeah, life sucks in certain times, in certain spaces. I'm not saying that's not the case, but you control what you can control, and that is how you perceive what's happening. So, with all that being said, when you are operating from a different mindset, you have different outcomes. And in our experience right now, we're having today, you just listening to this podcast, you're choosing something different. Because this is not a podcast that's telling you, armor up, we're going into battle. Absolutely not. Is that a battle you want? Because guess what? Every battle that comes in our place, in our space, we don't have to engage. You do not have to suit up. Just like you say, yeah, we're going in, you can absolutely say, I'm stepping out on this one. I'm going in a different direction because I don't want that today. That was me back then. That is not who I am now. So let's talk about what a release might be like. And we're going to do a guided reflection right now. I want you to take a very deep breath in, and not just a shallow breath. I want you to fill your lungs full up till you cannot breathe anymore through your nose. You're going to take a deep breath in. And then when I say breathe out, you're going to breathe out through your mouth, through your lips. There's a reason why I'm telling you this. You breathe in through your nose and you pull up your chest. You should feel your chest physically rise. You should see it. And breathe out through your mouth. So as we begin, you're going to breathe in. I survive with God's strength. Breathe out. I surrender the need to keep fighting. Breathe in. I bless the journey that brought me here. Breathe out. I release the guilt that keeps me chained to the past. Now I want you to repeat after me. Father, I thank you for the person who fought battles no one else saw. I thank you for your hand that never left my side. Today, I honor that person. I bless her. I release her into your peace. And I choose rest. I choose healing. I choose life beyond survival. In Jesus' name, amen. And for those of you, again, thank you who participated and have gotten this far. And remember, you did what you had to do to survive. But now it's time to rest. And even on the battlefield, because like I said, I'm not saying that there won't be challenges that pop up. There's rest there as well. But you don't want to be beaten and battered so bad where it's forced rest. You want to be able to make the choice to do so. Another thing that I know, when you keep going and not listen to your body, because your body gives you chances. It's like, hey, you might need to sit down someplace, right? That could look like headaches. That could look like illnesses popping up. That can look like a lot of things. But if you keep ignoring it, you will be put in forced rest. And what does that mean? Your body does something where you have no other choice. For me, it's when I got COVID multiple times, even though I was vaccinated. For me, it's 1 year when I got the flu. When you are stressed and operate in survival, and you can fact check me all day, your body's immune system takes a hit, making you you can pick up germs and illnesses. Again, forced rest. And sometimes it's not illness. Sometimes things happen where you are made to rest. It could look like life challenges. It could look like a job loss. It could look like a car stopped working, so now you can't go places that you typically go. There's so many different ways where when you don't listen, I call it the check engine light. Your body will give you check engine lights that either you're about to hit a wall, you need to take a moment, If you keep ignoring that check engine light, your option to choose rest turns into a requirement that you have no choice because you're on your back or you're just immobile. So I say all that to say rest is so important. And as we say blessings and thankful and be in gratitude to the person we were who had to stay in the fight, now we get to choose what soft looks like for us. Now we get to choose rest. So, again, thank you for being here, and know that you're free to live, you're free to love, you're free to rest. And I want you to stay grounded and know that I feel it's really important. So why don't you just go ahead and take a nap? I feel like I'm saying that at the end of every episode. I'm a big nap fan. If there's nothing else I will say is, if I can take a time for me to take a big nap, I'm going to take a nice nap. So hey, maybe take a nice nap, but that's on my soft list. That's on my soft list, right? When I can take a nap, I'm going to take a nap. But I've earned it. I've earned every nap that I take based on what I had to do to survive. So definitely go to the website. The web page on the website is Graceful Reset. You'll not only see some mini journals that accompany specifically this episode, and I'll also link it in the pod description, but there's other resources on that page as well. So check out the website. I'll have a safe life, safe and soft, right? Because soft and safety kind of go hand in hand. I'll have a soft life planning little checklist and a little mini journal that you can work through, again, to allow yourself to give thanks and gratitude for who you were to survive, and allow yourself rest and restoration. Thank you all so much for being here. Until next time, you guys take care of yourself. And yeah, like I said, go take a nap.